I remember the night everything shifted, the way the air felt heavier, almost electric, and the faint hum of the heater that usually blended into background noise. I was sitting cross-legged on our bedroom floor, surrounded by a clutter of Liam's toys, when Mark appeared in the doorway, leaning casually against the frame. His presence usually brought comfort, a familiar warmth, but that evening, there was a tension in his posture I hadn't seen before. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice low and uncharacteristically hesitant. I looked up at him, sensing that whatever he was about to say wouldn't be ordinary. I nodded, patting the floor beside me, and he joined me reluctantly, as if stepping into unfamiliar territory. Mark has always been observant. He notices the little things, the furrow in my brow, the way I bite my lip when I'm anxious, the half-empty mug of tea I leave on the counter. He's patient, thoughtful, endlessly kind, but that night, his eyes betrayed an urgency, a vulnerability I hadn't seen in years. I have a wish," he confessed, and the words made my stomach tighten. A wish. I thought it would be harmless, like the casual ideas we used to dream up in college. But the pause before he spoke again, the careful way he chose his words, told me this was different. "And I need you to say yes." I blinked, uncertain. The weight of the moment pressed down on me. A part of me wanted to ask what he meant, to retreat to the safety of routine, but another part, the part of me that still remembered the spark that had brought us together, leaned forward, curious and cautious. The room was quiet except for our breathing, and the silence stretched like a fragile thread. I glanced around, at the scattered toys, the soft glow of the lamp, the shadows that danced along the walls. This was our life, ordinary and safe. And yet, in that ordinary space, he had planted a seed of uncertainty, a possibility I couldn't ignore. "Say yes," he repeated softly, and it was less a command than a plea. My mind raced. What did this mean for us? For Liam? For the life we had built? I wanted to retreat, to protect myself from the unknown, but the intensity in his gaze rooted me in place. I nodded, almost without thinking. The word hung in the air, heavier than I could have imagined, carrying consequences we couldn't yet see. And in that instant, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The moment was simple, almost mundane on the surface, but beneath it lay a fracture in our life, a shift so profound that the path forward was suddenly uncertain. I had said yes, and that single word set everything into motion. The days that followed Mark's wish were strange, almost surreal. Life carried on with its usual rhythms, Liam's school routine, my early mornings at work, Mark's carefully timed gym sessions, but beneath the surface, everything felt taut, like a wire pulled tight, ready to snap. I moved through our home with a heightened awareness, noticing every glance, every half-smile, every hesitation. It was as if the walls themselves had absorbed the secret, humming with an energy I could neither ignore nor name. Mark tried to act normal. He brewed my coffee in the mornings, left small notes on the kitchen counter, even laughed at Liam's jokes as if nothing had changed. Yet I could see it in his eyes, the restless flicker, the thought that lingered just beyond reach. I wanted to confront him, to demand clarity, but fear tangled with desire, and I hesitated. Some part of me, the part still drawn to the man I married, wanted to step carefully into the unknown. Our conversations grew quieter, more deliberate. Words we once threw around carelessly now carried weight. A simple question about Liam's homework could trigger 1,000 unspoken thoughts, and a compliment about his tie or my dress felt layered with meanings neither of us voiced. I caught myself analyzing every interaction, searching for clues, as if decoding a puzzle whose rules I didn't fully understand. One evening, Mark suggested a walk around the neighborhood. The autumn air was crisp, leaves crackling underfoot, and the faint scent of wood smoke drifted from nearby chimneys. Normally, I would have welcomed the stroll, but my mind churned with unease. Why did he want to be outside, away from our safe home, away from Liam? And yet, I went, keeping pace beside him, feeling the tension coil and uncoil with every step. "I keep thinking about it," he said after a long silence, voice low, almost hesitant. "The wish. I can't stop imagining what it could mean, for us, for me." He looked at me then, eyes searching mine, as if hoping I would understand the gravity of his longing without needing words. I felt my stomach tighten. "And what do you want me to do?" I asked, voice quieter than I intended, betraying my own curiosity and fear. He shrugged, a small, almost boyish gesture, but the vulnerability in it was undeniable. I don't know. I need you to be with me in this, whatever it becomes. The honesty in his admission left me both unsettled and strangely exhilarated. I realized that we were standing on a threshold. One step forward could open doors I had never imagined, and one step back could lock us forever in the safety of what we already knew. As we walked home in silence, the world felt altered, subtly and irrevocably. The houses, the trees, even the distant hum of a passing car seemed to reflect the tension I carried inside. I knew that the wish was more than a simple request. It was a fracture in our lives, a test of trust, and a revelation of desires I had long buried. And somehow, I also knew that saying yes would change everything, in ways I was only beginning to understand. Weeks passed, and the tension between Mark and me grew like an unspoken storm, gathering strength in the quiet moments. I began to notice small changes, subtle at first, that gnawed at my sense of normalcy. He'd linger over his phone longer than usual, answering texts with a quick, almost guilty glance over his shoulder. His work hours suddenly extended, and though he claimed it was all deadlines and meetings, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else had taken root. I tried to ignore it, burying myself in routine, folding laundry, preparing meals, reading bedtime stories to Liam. But even these simple acts were shadowed by doubt. My thoughts spiraled endlessly, questioning whether I had misjudged the nature of his wish or, worse, my own willingness to say yes. I caught myself replaying that night, dissecting every nuance in his expression, the way he whispered, "I need you to say yes." I had agreed without fully comprehending the consequences, and now I was beginning to feel them pressing in. One evening, as we sat on the couch after Liam had fallen asleep, Mark's hand brushed mine. The touch, once comforting, now sparked a mixture of longing and fear. "Sarah," he said softly, "I didn't mean for it to be this complicated. I thought we could explore it together, carefully." I pulled my hand away, my chest tight. "Carefully?" I echoed. "Do you even understand what this is doing to us?" He sighed, running his fingers through his hair. "I know it's messy. I never imagined it would feel like this, like something is slipping through our fingers before we even had it. But I can't stop thinking about it. About you. About what it could mean." The words hit me like cold water. Desire and fear collided inside me, leaving me dizzy with uncertainty. I wanted to scream, to demand honesty, but the moment held me captive. There was a raw, desperate need in him, one that mirrored my own curiosity, my own secret yearning. And yet, I feared the consequences of indulging it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining all the ways our marriage could fracture, all the paths we could take that might lead to betrayal. I remembered the early days, our laughter echoing through empty apartments, the reckless promises we made with hearts too young to know fear. Could we recapture even a fraction of that trust, that intimacy, without destroying what we had built? By morning, the house felt different. The quiet hum of the heater, the sunlight spilling through the blinds, even Liam's cheerful chatter at breakfast carried a weight I couldn't ignore. I realized that the wish wasn't just a fleeting idea, it was a force, testing the boundaries of our love, forcing us to confront truths we had long avoided. And in that realization, I knew we had reached a point of no return. The choice I made that night was no longer abstract, it was alive, reshaping every glance, every touch, every whispered word between us. The question was no longer whether I had said yes, it was whether we could survive the consequences together. It was a Thursday evening when the weight of secrecy finally broke. Liam was asleep, the house drenched in quiet shadows, and I had just finished washing the last of the dishes. The hum of the dishwasher filled the room, masking the sudden, icy panic that rose in my chest. Mark had returned late from work, though the look in his eyes as he entered the kitchen told a different story. I didn't speak at first. I waited, holding my breath, as he placed his coat on the rack and leaned against the counter. His hands trembled slightly, betraying the calm he tried so hard to maintain. "Sarah," he began, voice rough with emotion, I need to tell you something. Something I should have said before." My stomach knotted. I had feared this moment, imagined it countless times, and now it had arrived, tangible and unforgiving. Go on, I said quietly, bracing myself for the truth. He swallowed hard. The wish, it wasn't just a fantasy. It went further than either of us expected. I thought I could control it, that we could explore it safely, but it's complicated. I crossed a line. The words struck me like lightning. My heart raced, and a hollow ache settled in my chest. You, what? I whispered, disbelief and fury mixing in equal measure. He met my gaze, raw honesty shining through the vulnerability. I was unfaithful, he admitted, voice barely audible. I didn't plan for it to happen, and I never stopped loving you. I didn't want to hurt you. I just lost control. I wanted something we couldn't have, and I made a mistake that changed everything. I staggered backward, gripping the edge of the counter to steady myself. The room felt smaller, oppressive, as if the walls themselves were closing in. The betrayal, the secrecy, the consequences of that simple word, yes, suddenly surged through me like a tidal wave. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was deafening, laden with the weight of years, trust fractured in an instant. And yet, beneath the shock and the hurt, I saw him, nakedly human, flawed, desperate for understanding. I felt the strange pull of empathy, tinged with grief, anger, and a lingering love I could not fully extinguish. You crossed a line, I said finally, my voice steady despite the tears that burned my eyes. And I agreed to it. I have to face that too. His hand reached for mine, hesitant, trembling. I never wanted this to destroy us, he whispered. I want to find a way back. But I need you. I need you to know the truth, even if it hurts. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the man I had chosen, the father of my child, the one I had loved through all the ordinary and extraordinary days of our life. And I realized that love, messy, complicated, imperfect, was still there, stubbornly refusing to vanish. The revelation was devastating, but it also offered clarity. The fracture was wide, painful, and real, but it was something we could see, confront, and perhaps, one day, heal. The weeks that followed were quiet but heavy. Mark and I moved through our home cautiously, like travelers navigating a landscape scarred by a recent storm. Liam's laughter filled the rooms, a reminder of the life we were committed to protecting, and yet, every glance between Mark and me carried an unspoken acknowledgement of what had happened, an invisible thread of truth binding us together and keeping us painfully aware. We attended therapy sessions, first with stiff politeness and guarded hearts, then gradually, as walls softened and honesty seeped in, with tentative openness. Each conversation unearthed feelings we had buried, guilt, longing, fear, and the fragile sparks of trust that had never fully extinguished. Some nights, we would lie in bed, fingers entwined, simply breathing the same air, finding solace in small gestures, a hand on a shoulder, a shared smile, the warmth of presence without words. I learned to forgive, though not easily. Forgiveness, I realized, was not a single act but a series of decisions repeated daily. It was seeing the man I loved, not just the one who had faltered. It was acknowledging my own choices, my own curiosity, my own part in the events that had brought us to this precarious point. And in that understanding, I found strength, a quiet, steady flame that refused to be snuffed out by anger or disappointment. Mark, too, seemed changed. The recklessness of desire had been tempered by the weight of consequence. I saw a man learning to navigate the delicate balance between longing and loyalty, desire and responsibility. Our conversations grew richer, deeper, sometimes difficult, sometimes filled with humor that reminded us of the life we had built long before the wish. There were days when the past shadowed the present, when doubt crept into my mind uninvited, and I questioned whether we had truly healed. But those moments passed, carried away by the patient work of rebuilding. Each shared laugh, each glance that lingered a fraction longer, each quiet evening together reaffirmed the choice we had made, to face the consequences, to confront the truth, and to remain, against all odds, together. I realized that love is not perfect. It does not arrive neatly packaged, ready for consumption. It is messy, challenging, sometimes painful, yet relentlessly persistent. Our marriage, tested and fractured, had endured because we chose to confront reality instead of hiding from it. And as I watched Mark helping Liam with homework one evening, the soft glow of the lamp illuminating his focused expression, I felt a quiet gratitude. We had survived a storm that could have torn us apart, and though the scars remained, they were marks of resilience, proof that love, imperfect, complicated, human, could endure. The wish had changed everything. But in its wake, we discovered something enduring, that even in the shadow of mistakes, trust could be rebuilt, and hearts could still find their way back to each other.